best known for her role as Glinda in the national tour of Wicked. Please welcome to the Zoom, Allison Bailey. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Oh my gosh, it's an honor to have you.
This is so much fun. I'm really excited.
So we always start behind the resume by talking about how we met. And I had the honor of seeing you in Wicked. I went to see my friend Natalia Bavino, and I just remember sitting there and I was like, who is Glinda? She is absolutely, you were like, if there was a word that is beyond perfect.
No, you are
Yeah,
so sweet. That
no,
means a lot.
no, you were like, I was thinking, I saw Into the Woods on Broadway recently, and I was thinking about Philippa Sue, and I was like, there's no way this isn't a track. Like, it's perfect. And you were that. Like, you were just absolutely perfect.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. And I got to do it with Natalia that night. I love her too. So she's
That was so
wonderful.
special. What was it like performing in the Sedgestrom Theater? Because what, 3,000 seats?
I think so. It's something like that. It's the coolest thing in the world. I think it's one of my favorite theaters.
Yeah.
It's neat because I had been with the company at that time almost 6.5 years. And
Oh,
so we had played um Costa Mesa, oh gosh, probably like 4 months in contract when I was an understudy. So it was a really full circle moment. I got kind of, this sounds so cliche, but I got teary eyed on opening night in Costa Mesa. Just, I was here 6 years ago as an understudy. So this has been the coolest to kind of full circle. So
wow.
it was beautiful.
Yeah, that theater was gorgeous. Okay, going way, way back, where are you from?
I am from Pensacola, Florida.
And how did you get started in performing?
Oh my goodness. I'm honestly like, I'm completely different than anybody in my family. My mom is a nurse. My brother is a pharmacist. My dad works for a wine and liquor distributing company. They don't like public speaking at all. So I don't know. I think my mom put me in a dance class when I was 3, just because I had a lot of energy. And she was like, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
And so I talked with my hands. I was just very animated. And so I was just a natural progression into community theater,
Mhm.
and that's just, I guess, where I just got the theater bug, and we went from there.
Wow. How would you describe yourself as a kid?
Oh goodness. There, I will say I was very, very innocent, very naive. Honestly, I didn't even know what a LaDuca shoe was until I went to college. I didn't know what an equity card was. It's a miracle I got into school in college. I was very much like a bookworm. I loved school for a long time. Like, I was in the debate team in high school. I thought that kind of was the track I wanted to go into, is more like maybe, but I just loved performing. And I thought about, if you could do anything in your life and you can't live without it, what is that? And for me, that was performing. And so I was like, I'm going to regret if I never at least try. And
Mm,
so that's why I decided to go to college for musical theater. So to round out that, how I describe myself as a child, just very naive and
yeah.
bookworm, and
Yeah.
not necessarily the musical theater mold.
Hmm. Did you have any pivotal theater moments as a kid?
I was really fortunate. I was very blessed because my mom would take me to New York, I'd say once every 2 years. And so we would go see shows, as many as that we could. I would look through the playbill, and I like to read everybody's bios. And
Yeah.
I don't know, that something about that, it just inspired me. And just watching shows in New York, I realized, I was like, I want to do this. So I don't know if there was necessarily a particular moment. It was just being able to go to New York City, a couple of times in my childhood, and see the shows and say, that's what I want to do.
Would you go to the stage door?
Absolutely. I stage door everything, and I didn't
Yeah.
care if it was a musician or someone played a tree. I wanted every signature is the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah. And so then now getting to be the performer at the stage door, is it just so full circle?
It's really neat, and that's what broke my heart right after COVID, is because everything about that shut down.
Yeah.
We had to protect every backstage, and even audience members, just to make sure that they were staying safe and well. And so it broke my heart not being able to see people, because that was my favorite part.
Yeah. So when did it go from this is my passion to this is what I'm pursuing as a career?
Oh gosh, probably that shift. I'd say probably the shift was in high school, probably around ninth grade, eighth or ninth grade. And I just really buckled down. I took voice lessons and dance classes, but then I was laughing on like how much technology has changed. I was thinking about the other day. I used to have like a little tape recorder. And so that's how I would rewind,
Yeah.
like my cassette tapes. And that's how I would, practice my voice lessons. And I'm like, oh my gosh, kids have it so good now that they can use their phone and
Yeah.
just use the, just the recording app. And so I think that's really when I started to buckle down and say, okay, how can I figure out how to get into college for this?
Yeah.
So I think it was my ninth grade year.
Were your parents supportive?
Very. My mom has always been my biggest cheerleader, my biggest advocate, my biggest critic. So I know this is silly, but I've always wanted my mom in the audience because she'll tell me,
Yeah.
girlfriend, let's fix this. Or,
Yeah.
and she is not a stage mom and she has no idea. She just knows if it sounds good or not. And so, but and my dad was very supportive too. I'm sure at the beginning of my freshman year in college, he would have loved to have seen me to go another path. Maybe he just, I think just because I did not grow up in a family in the arts, that was just foreign to him. And so I think it just took a little time for him to really get on board with that. But he saw how much I loved it. And so I cannot say I did not have supportive parents because they truly were.
Now, after sitting in the audience and seeing you in Wicked, is he like, oh, okay?
Oh my goodness. He is all about it. So
Yeah. He's like, my daughter is Glinda.
no, I mean, he had no idea what Wicked was. When I told him I had booked it, 6.5 years ago, he was like, okay. And so he had to come see the show and was like, oh, this is fun. I was like, yeah, Dad, it's a musical. So now I think he's all about it.
Oh my God, that's pretty. Wicked's only the most iconic show in Broadway history. That's
It's
pretty
pretty
funny.
cool. It actually is my favorite. Growing up, it was my absolute favorite. I
Wicked
listened to
is
this
the
CD.
first show that I saw on Broadway.
Really?
Yeah.
I love
I
that.
don't remember because I was so little, but
Sure.
what was the first show that you saw on Broadway?
Lion King.
Okay.
Fourth grade, Lion King. Absolutely loved it. I thought it was the coolest thing. I think Wicked though was my second. I think
Really?
from like fourth grade, and then I didn't go back to New York until about my eighth grade year.
So
So,
did anything in Glinda ever spark anything?
oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. That was my eighth grade year. And I know it sounds cliche to say when I saw her come down from the bubble, I knew, I knew that's what I wanted to absolutely do with my life. I was like, I want to do that. I don't know how I'm going to get the bubble, but I want to do that. And
Uh-huh.
you don't know if necessarily your dreams are going to come true because sometimes they're a little wild. But that was always my goal. I kind of say that's the reason why I went to school. I just wanted to play Glinda one time. I didn't know when or if that was ever going to happen, but I
Wow.
really wanted to do that one day.
So what was it like performing as Glinda for the first time?
There's nothing like it. There's absolutely nothing like it. And my first time was when I was an understudy, and so I didn't know when my first time was going to be. But it was at Christmas time in St. Louis, and my mom and my brother were there. My dad stayed home with the dog. He had to work because it's the busiest time of the season. And so my mom and my brother were there in the audience, and I don't think there's. I cried at curtain call because I think it was also I was so excited, but I was also very relieved
Yeah.
that the show didn't stop.
Yeah.
No one died. Everything was good.
Yeah.
So I was so excited though, but there's nothing like it. It was just an absolute dream come true. To have your dreams realized.
Yeah.
Not everybody gets to say that. And I realize how fortunate I am that it actually got to happen.
Who was your Glinda when you saw Wicked?
It was Jennifer Laura Thompson.
Do you know her personally?
I do not. I do not know her, and I have a picture with her. And
Oh,
I had my clear braces and a pink bucket hat on, and I was freezing cold. But I do have a picture with her, and I treasure it. I love it so much.
have you like reached out to her and told her that you've been Glinda now?
I haven't. I guess I should. Jennifer, you should watch this.
Oh my gosh, we'll send this to her. But could you imagine if some little girl in the audience had that moment with you and then went on to be Glinda?
So sweet. So sweet. And that's what I would think about, before we would start the show at night. Some people say, like, how do you keep the show fresh? I mean, honestly, like it's a dream show,
Yeah.
but you think about, you know, the little one out there that is seeing the show for the very first time.
Mhm.
And whether or not they want to play Glinda or want to be another character in the show, you're a part of that experience. And I think that's really special and a privilege. It really is.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What was college like?
College was a lot of fun. I was actually an RA for 2 of my, years, my junior and senior
Oh,
year. So
okay.
I was kinda like a house mama. I lived in a brownstone, and it was 4 floors, and I had 50 students that I took care of basically,
Uh-huh.
but I loved every second of it.
Where did you go?
Boston
Okay.
Conservatory. I
Oh,
probably should have said that. That probably would have been a good lead off to, how was college? I'm like, it's fun. I went to the Boston Conservatory. I
mhm,
learned a lot. It was a big learning curve for me. I know there's a lot of people out there that are so talented and they can just, springboard from high school and go right into the industry.
mhm.
I needed that time to learn. I really needed time to learn about the craft and become a better dancer. And I think that's actually at the time, that's why I chose Boston Conservatory, is because I wanted to be a great singer, but I wanted to be well rounded because I knew that, being in the ensemble too is such a pivotal part of a show.
Totally.
Um, and so I really just wanted to be a well rounded performer. And, that was a great opportunity for me at school. So it was a steep learning curve for me. I learned a lot, but I think those 4 years were crucial for, who I identify as an actor today.
What was the biggest thing you learned about the arts and about yourself while at Boko?
Ooh, I mean, they truly reinforce that every single day. A lot of your first job, you may be in the ensemble. And so that's the most important thing. If you don't feel like you're a very strong singer, but you're a great dancer, really push those voice lessons or vice versa,
Mhm,
or really learn how to play the piano. Growing up, I played the piano, like I took lessons. I really didn't focus on that as much as I probably should have.
mhm.
And so those first 2 years at BOCO, like I spent a lot of time in the practice room just starting to plunk and learn. And I think that was a huge thing, being a team player. I
Mhm.
think that was the biggest thing, is being a team player and just being well-rounded and jumping in and being willing to try something new.
Yeah. Was it hard to be away from home?
Very much so. We laugh because a lot of our family friends, they were like, "She's going to Boston and she's from Florida." They're like, "Pack her bags for 6 weeks, she'll never last." Um, and I don't know, maybe it was the stubborn in me, maybe I knew that I wouldn't ever be able to, pursue my dream if I didn't stay.
Mhm,
And I stuck to it. I think a great part of Boston is it's on a harbor, it's close to the water,
mhm.
and that's my home. I'm from a beach. Water has always been like a safe place for me. And just knowing if I could just like walk to the harbor a couple miles away and just see it, I was like, I don't feel as homesick.
Mm,
And don't get me wrong, my family visited a lot. They really did. I was very thankful that they came to visit. And I'm very close to my family. So it was hard, especially the first year. But then once you kind of get into it, you realize I can do this.
yeah. So was it a BFA program?
It was. I got
Okay.
my Bachelor of Fine Arts, and it's a 4-year program.
Uh-huh. How was the admissions process like for that?
Oh, goodness. So I am a crazy person. I went to the Boston Conservatory sight unseen. I auditioned at Unifieds,
Uh-huh.
which I am, some of your listeners, I'm sure know what this is,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's basically, when they have like a whole bunch of college auditions in one place. And so that one place for me was in Chicago. And so I auditioned to 4 schools while I was there.
Uh-huh.
And so I think I sang 2 songs, 2 monologues at the time for Boko. And then there was a big dance and it was like an hour and a half. And that's when I got to meet Michelle Chassé, and she was the head of the dance department in the musical theater department there. And so it was very intimidating because there were so many of us, across the floor in this carpeted ballroom.
Oh my god.
But I was like, "Oh gosh, if I can get into this school, I think I'm gonna learn a lot."
Yeah.
And so that was the audition process for me. And so when I got accepted, I had never even visited the school. I showed up in August of that school year,
Wow.
my 2 bags, and that was it. I had never seen Boko before.
The process of getting into a school for a BFA in musical theater is absolutely insane, and I did not go that route. I remember when my friends were going through it, unifieds and the auditions, like, it is insanity.
I don't even envy anyone that does it now, because I think it's
Yeah.
even gotten harder. There's now, I think, like, video screenings.
Hmm.
There's so many, it seems like there's a lot more even processes now. So I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I thought it was rough when I was going to
Yeah.
school." It's
You gotta
tough.
love it. It's a test of, is this what you really want to do? Because
Perseverance. They teach you perseverance right off the bat.
totally. What advice would you have for someone going through that soon?
Perseverance,
Mhm.
truly. I'd also say, have your very first school or second school in mind, but audition for several. There might be other schools that it would be a great asset to you. Just keep an open mind, especially because the admission rate for certain schools is very small. There were some programs that like accepted 4 people.
Oh my gosh.
And when you think 4 people across the entire United States, even world,
Yeah.
um, that's a very small, and it's not because you didn't get in because of a certain reason. Not talented. It's just what they needed at that time. So I just say just keep an open mind and have perseverance, and I think that's the best way to handle it.
Yeah. What was the hardest part about being in a BFA program?
Ah, I think you learn early on. I know this sounds silly, but you learn early on about rejection. What I did love about my school is that there was 50 of us in a program. So
Mhm.
when you do the whole musical theater program across for 4 years, that's 200 students.
Mhm.
So I would not necessarily get in the main stage. I was not in the main stage until my senior year. We did Oklahoma. So there was a lot of Zach Box performances, which and Zach was our black box.
Okay.
I was like, I realized people were like, "What's a Zach box?" It was a black box performance, and so it was smaller. It's like 50. It held 50 people, but it was such a very pivotal performances for me because I learned a lot. I learned about myself as a performer, and I got to experiment with that and try things before it was put into a bigger audience. I think that was such a important experience for me, but I learned a lot about rejection. I was not always cast in like the big shows,
Yeah.
and it really prepared me for the real world because there's a lot of no's that have come up in
Mhm.
my life. And some people may have it a lot easier, but for me, I've been told, I think I kept a journal, and I think I had like 110 no's before Wicked. Um,
Wow.
and,
Oh my
and,
gosh,
and
that is so inspiring to hear.
yes, and I don't know. I mean, maybe a lot of people do talk about rejection. Maybe they don't. I'm not I'm an open book, so I'll tell you. But I think I had 110 no's before I got my first yes. And I'm
Wow.
sure I'll have another 110. Like it's not just because, you get one moment in your career where you're like, this is it. You keep making new dreams and new
But if
goals.
you had stopped at the 109th no or the 110th no, you wouldn't have gotten your dream job.
Yeah, truly. And I think it's, there's like one phone call can change your life. I think it's like sometimes you just have to wake up, and there's a lot of hard days. There's been a lot of hard days in my life. And I think you have to wake up in the morning and say, maybe today is the yes. And maybe you go to bed that night and you're like, well, that wasn't a yes day. But you never know when you wake
Yeah.
up in the morning whether or not it's gonna be a good day. And that just changes the whole trajectory of, maybe the next year for you.
Has handling the rejection gotten not easier? Has it gotten easier along your journey?
Yes and no. Yes, I think you don't it's hard. That's a very complex question because
Yeah.
I'm gonna say there's a couple of no's that'll happen that'll really hurt.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
totally.
it's not like I can say I'm immune to rejection
Yeah.
at all. It still hurts, but I
I
think
feel like if you get immune, then you don't care, you know?
exactly. And, same thing about when someone says, "Do you still get nervous?" Yes, I
Yeah.
do. It's because you care.
Yeah.
And I think the moment that you don't get nervous at all, I think that's when you have to at least look at yourself and say, okay, is it just because I'm not in my body anymore? Or, or have I lost interest? So I think it is important to have like a little bit of nerves and excitement. But yeah, so the rejection, I'm not going to say necessarily gets easier, but you do build a little bit of a tougher shell around you, and you can't take everything as personal. I
Mhm.
think it's figuring out, okay, that wasn't necessarily an attack against my character or
Yeah.
personally about me. You learn that some of the decisions, it's just business.
Yeah.
And um that doesn't necessarily make it easy because you wish it went in your favor and you're like, well, can business be in my corner this time? But you learn it's not necessarily about you. It's just the nature of the business.
But as artists, we're such deep feeling, emotional, passionate people, you know?
Yes. Yes, I know. It is so much easier said than done. I know
Yeah,
somebody could say, like, don't take it personally. It doesn't hurt. It does. It
yeah,
does.
yeah.
We're human. That's just, it's part of us.
hmm Along your journey, have you ever struggled with confidence or self-worth?
Oh gosh, yes.
Oh,
Oh my goodness, yes. I gonna be honest, I've never been a very I don't want to say necessarily not a confident person, but I never have been very like I'm more of a self-deprecating person. I have a very hard time at taking compliments or anything like that. It's just I I don't know. I love birthdays because I love the celebration, but when it comes to singing happy birthday, I don't love it just because then the attention's on me. I don't know. I think I've never had necessarily confident issues, but yeah, absolutely. There's been times that I'm like, oh gosh, am I capable of this? Or,
really?
yeah, absolutely. And I think if you ask like a lot of people across a lineup, everyone has at least some sort of
Oh,
like
totally.
a similar, trait there.
Mhm,
I absolutely have questioned like, am I capable of this? And I think it's just you have to find that in yourself. Like you
mhm,
absolutely can. You're capable of these things.
mhm.
It's just, sometimes it's not necessarily going to be like right off the bat.
Yeah.
And it takes practice and time.
Did you ever feel that way for Wicked?
Oh, sure. I think when you first sit down with your script in your music book, you go, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah.
And then you take, you finally you sit down and you take the time to just kind of look at everything and day by day, and then you're like, "Okay, we just have to take it scene by scene, note by note." And then it does become easier. I think even when we remounted the show, we hadn't done it for 16 months after,
Oh my gosh.
and it was like, "Oh gosh, like what do we sound like? Like
Yeah.
do we were just and it's like it's not like riding a bike, but it's more than you think.
Mhm.
So, but absolutely, I think everybody at some point does struggle with a little bit of confidence issues and just being sure.
Yeah. At what age do you think you struggled with the self-worth the most?
Oh my goodness, I'm sure that started in middle school for me. I went to a small private Christian school, so I was definitely immune to maybe some of like bullying, or just because I was in a class of 20, there
Yeah.
wasn't as many across the board that could do that. But there's, children are children, and you'll always have like a popular crowd, even if it's in a group of 20 people. And I'm not necessarily going to say I was the most popular person. I liked musical
No
theater.
pun intended.
No, I know it's silly. I like so I people say, "Do you identify with Glinda?" I'm like, "Yes and no." I was very much I'm a bubbly person. I'm a happy person. I love pink and glitter. But I'm not going to say I was like this popular persona and by any means. I wasn't, on the cheerleading squad or homecoming court or prom
Mhm.
queen or anything like that. And I think that's so great. I would have loved to have been, but I was not.
Yeah.
And I loved musical theater. I was big into books in school. I was just a normal person. And so yeah, I think definitely in middle school I think that's probably when I first started to kind of have a little bit less confidence.
Yeah. If your 16-year-old self could see you now, what would she say?
Oh goodness. Just stick to who you are and be yourself. And I don't want to necessarily say on put on like little blind,
Mhm.
really just stay on your own path.
Mhm.
And I think that just would have been so easy for me. I think for a while, especially through high school or even college, I was so consumed in trying to necessarily fit a mold, like what I thought was the right way to fit into
Yeah.
the industry, or and it's truly when people say like just be you, it is just be you, and there's no right or wrong way. It's just figuring out where you want to fit in this industry, in this career, and just be yourself, and that's all you can bring.
If you could tell your 16-year-old self something now, what would you say?
Oh goodness. I think oh goodness, that's such a hard question. I mean, I do think it's just having that perseverance,
Mhm.
just waking up every day, and I would have said also to focus on that piano, my friend. I would have really said, focus on that piano, just because I would have saved me a lot of time in a practice room in college. But I think at the root of it all is just having that perseverance and just keep, you know, pursuing your dream, and loving musical theater is okay, even if that's not what's necessarily the it thing, in high
I
school.
think it's pretty cool.
I think it's the coolest. It was not at my high school. I don't, that was not a thing. I was really, they didn't even have a really strong musical theater program at my high school. I had to do community theater to really participate in what I loved. And so I guess that's when I, for a while, was like, oh gosh, it's like, is this cool? I don't know. And now I'm like, yes, yes, my friend, it is very cool. You should have just, not even timidly ran toward that.
So
So
funny. I've always been that kid who was like, musical theater is the coolest thing on this earth.
I love it. That's all I listened to driving in the car were, cast recordings, and I just loved every second of it. So,
What are your go-to albums?
oh my goodness. I at the time I loved Legally Blonde.
Uh-huh.
Love it's just fun. It's
Yeah.
fun to walk on a treadmill too.
Yeah.
I loved Legally Blonde. I loved Hairspray. They're just like happy go lucky. I
Yeah.
actually loved the score of Bridges to Madison County.
I
Just
haven't heard that one.
oh my goodness, it's
It's so good.
beautiful. It's
Uh-huh.
beautiful. Jason Robert Brown does no wrong. He's just
Uh-huh.
such a great.
Yeah.
And so I love that. Also too though, and Wicked is just it's fun.
Mhm.
It's just fun. What about you?
I've been listening to a lot of ragtime lately.
Oh my goodness, yes,
So
yes, yes.
good. Miss Saigon is a go-to. And Children of Eden. Have you ever
Oh, yes.
Children of Eden is my favorite musical. It's just that was my first professional show. Actually, Natalia was Yona
No
when
way.
she was 19. Yeah.
I'm jealous that you even got to
So,
be a part of that.
oh, my mom still talks about her performance in that. But that was
Oh,
just a very, very like that was like my moment of this is my forever, you know?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
that I was listening to the soundtrack actually yesterday. Like it's so beautiful.
Well, maybe I'll have to go back and listen.
I've been loving Daddy Longlegs.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
The
Music's
Secret of
gorgeous.
Happiness is a very, very beautiful song.
Yes.
Yeah,
Love that.
Anastasia, that soundtrack is so good.
Fantastic.
There's
Absolutely
so many good
fantastic.
ones.
Yes, I saw that in previews
Oh,
several years ago
really?
back in New York, and I honestly like it takes a lot for me to cry just because
Uh-huh.
I don't know why. I think I bottle it all up, and I cried through the whole show.
Did you see Christy?
I did, I
I'm
did.
so jealous.
I even
That's so
cried
cool.
at curtain call. I think I had her friends next to me, and they were crying.
Oh.
So then I started crying because I was like, everybody's crying. It's a cry fest. She was fabulous. I've never
Oh,
met her, but I think she is so fantastic.
that's so cool. Is there a new dream as big as Glinda?
There is. And that's also you make dreams personally
Yeah.
and, professionally. And really excited to see what's next. Yeah, there are other dreams which is wonderful. For me, I have dreams and aspirations for my career. And then I also have just dreams personally of just, getting married and being a mom.
Mhm.
I can't wait for that children one day too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so cool. Your kids will be like, my mom was Glinda. Like, that's
I don't know.
so cool.
I'm not gonna even know about that probably for years. They'll be like, "What?" Which but that'll be really, really fun to be able to for them to be able to experience that magic one day too.
Yeah. For Bring Your Parents to Work Day, you should come in the outfit and come down on a bubble and
We,
just
we
start
will
singing.
definitely work on that for sure. I'm
Yeah.
sure one year there will be like a Wizard of Oz theme for Halloween, especially.
Oh, that is iconic. What was the hardest part about touring?
Oh goodness, packing. I know that's really silly. You learn how to play Tetris with your clothes, and you become very good at it. Packing was very difficult, but I love traveling to new places. I really did. I genuinely loved every second of it. And I think being away from your family, you know, that's the caveat to being in a new city. It's a new place, it's a new adventure, but it's also not your home. So I think that's really hard is being away from your loved ones.
Yeah. And you were part of the show for six, how many years?
6.5 years.
Six and a
Yes.
half years. I mean, the music's brilliant, the show's brilliant, but did you ever go a little bit crazy just hearing the same music that many times?
I loved it. I really, really loved it. I did, for 3.5 of those years. It was 3 years, 8 months I was in the ensemble. That
Mm,
was a totally different track when I played Glinda full time. So it was really exciting in the ensemble too because I went on for Glinda quite a bit. I think I went on
wow.
like 72 times as an understudy.
Gosh.
So I went on it was fresh. I never knew when I was going to go on. It was very exciting. I loved it. So I think for the first part of my Wicked experience to the second part, they were vastly different.
Mm,
And then we also had COVID that broke us up for 16 months, and you had a renewed excitement,
yeah.
and it was just so refreshing to come back for my next, oh gosh, I think it was like another 8 months that I came back after COVID to the rest of my contract. And
Mhm.
it was such a great we were just so happy to be on stage, to
Yeah.
be in live audience. So I did not go crazy, believe it or not.
That's incredible. Wicked was your dream show and then 6.5 years with it. What was it
Yeah,
like
it
doing your
really,
last performance?
oh goodness. I thought it was sad because I knew that it was my last time performing, especially with the same company.
Mhm.
But it also was like a culmination of just a celebration.
Yeah.
Just so happy to have had the experience that I did. Wicked's a family, especially from being there so long. It's not just everyone that performs on stage every night. It's also the crew and management and everyone that works behind the curtain.
Mhm.
So I think it's more of a happy celebration having my family and my agent and everybody in the audience too.
Yeah. So where are you now? Are you doing a show or what's your life like
I'm
now?
in Florida.
Uh-huh.
I'm in Pensacola, Florida. Pensacola, and I still go back to New York for auditions,
Mhm.
and so yes, for right now, I'm in Pensacola, Florida.
Yeah. The life of an actor performer, it's so wild because, you're 6 years you're on a show and then you're back to auditioning and it's so how have you been managing that like the in between time now?
Goodness, I think I've enjoyed every second of it. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I
That's great.
have. I've really this is a time, some people will say, "Well, you had time off during COVID."
Mhm.
We did, but it was different. It was so different. We didn't know how our industry was going to come back or,
Mhm.
what life would be like.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of uncertainty and it was very unsettling during that time. So now, and the world wasn't open, it
Mhm.
wasn't like we used that time to just and go to different places. And so now it's been so wonderful to take vacations with my family and be able to just really just take that time in and just enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
You're
What was
you do a great job.
Thank you. Um, what was your favorite if you had to pick one moment from your whole experience with Wicked, what was the most magical memory?
Oh goodness. I know I've talked about the first time I came out of the bubble
Mhm.
in St. Louis. That will always be the most memorable memory for me.
Mhm.
But probably a core memory, as it seems like that's what the youth say now on TikTok, my core memory. It was for sure the opening night in Dallas after
Mhm.
COVID. I mean, we were the first Broadway tour to open up
Yeah.
in the US, and there's nothing like it. Everyone was so excited on stage, but the audience was just so happy that we were all performing and there's 3,000 of us in the same room. That
Yeah.
hadn't happened in so long. There's nothing like that moment for me.
Were there any onstage mishaps ever?
Oh, ever or just
Yeah.
that night?
No, in Wicked.
Oh my goodness, yes. Oh my goodness, I've definitely tripped on my dress
Oh,
before.
no.
My zipper's gotten stuck before. There's always costume mishaps and things like that's what makes the magic of theater. It's so much fun because it's not the same every night. And
Mhm.
then you figure out that's your job is to figure out how to navigate it. And hopefully the audience is not noticing. And of course you are, but that's your job to make sure that they don't.
Yeah.
Um, so I just there's nothing like just being on stage. And I love the mishaps because it just makes it fresh.
Yeah, totally. Are you interested in TV and film at all or more theater?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Uh,
Oh, I would love to. Absolutely love to. That's something that I never really have been able to dive into just because it moves so fast. Especially, with commercials, there'll be an audition and they'll be like, "Are you available Tuesday?" And it's Friday. And when you're on a contract and you're on the road, it's really hard. And
yeah.
so now I would absolutely love to.
Hmm. What are the big career goals for the foreseeable future?
Oh goodness. I would love to do a Broadway show.
Mhm,
I also love Disney.
mhm.
I do. I love Disney. Um, TV and film. Those are some, some goals for me. And I don't know what's next, but I'm really excited to see it.
What's your favorite TV show or just shows you've been watching lately?
Oh goodness. Well, shows I've been watching lately, my whole family in like a span of like 3 weeks, we watched all of Schitt's Creek.
Oh,
All of it in its
uh-huh,
entirety. It is
uh-huh.
so hilarious to me. It's just heartwarming.
Yeah.
It's a good one. I actually love documentaries. I really
Mm,
do. So those on all the ones on Netflix,
mhm.
I think I have seen them all,
Yeah.
whether that be true crime
Uh-huh.
or just a biography on someone. I love them.
If you were to have your own documentary on Netflix, what would the title be?
Oh goodness. That's a hard one. I think it would have to do probably something with like have to do something with a Southern Belle. I mean, I'm as Southern as they come. I am from Pensacola, Florida, but
Uh-huh.
I live 5 miles from Alabama. So I am Southern as they come, and my accent. I think my accent got worse when I went to Boston Conservatory because no one talks like me. So I was like, well, I
Uh-huh.
have to make up for it. So it probably would have to something with being from the South.
Uh-huh. What advice would you give to aspiring performers and theater actors?
Oh my goodness. I think it's a culmination of everything that I've talked about with the just to have that perseverance, keep trying, wake up each day, and even if you get a million no's, that one yes is just around the corner.
Mm,
I think that's just like so important as not even just as for your career, but just in life.
yeah.
You just have to keep trying, and no matter what you want, even if you are not involved musical theater, if it's just for any part of your career, it's just having that perseverance and trying and just being your absolute best.
Yeah. What do you want your legacy to be?
More than anything, just being a good person. I
Mhm,
think I remember how someone treats me more than I ever will their talent.
mhm.
Hands down, when I look across the board, because I've worked with so many people that have come through the revolving door at Wicked, and I've met some incredibly kind people. And I remember though how they treat me, and they can sing their face off. But I remember like how about their character and their kindness and the way they treat me and others. And I want somebody to be able to say the same about me. I
Mhm.
really do. I think I hope somebody says that I'm a good performer, but most importantly, I want them to say, she was really nice to me or gave me the time of day when I needed it most.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing that I could have a part of my character.
Thank you so much. This was incredible.
Thank you. You were just a delight. You were so much fun.
Thank you. Yeah, this was amazing. You're amazing, and I'm so glad. I'm excited to share your story, and I loved learning more about you.
I've loved learning about you. So I'm gonna have to listen to Children of Eden now.
Oh my gosh, do it. It's so good. It's so good.
No, it's been so good to see you.
You too.
Truly.